Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, and I almost ignored it. I reached for it with one eye open, already annoyed. I am Mark 38, and that swipe changed everything. The screen lit up with a name I knew too well. Her contact flashed on the screen, and something in me woke up hard. It was Rachel, my wife's closest friend, the church one. She never called this late, she texted polite verses instead. For a second I thought something happened to her kids. I thumbed accept and pressed the phone to my ear. I had no idea I was walking into a bomb. "Mark, are you awake?" Her voice came out thin and tight. "You called, so yeah, I am awake now," I sounded sharp. She let out this shaky breath that made my stomach clench. "Okay, I need to tell you something important about Emily." Right there my brain split between curiosity and pure dread. You know that jolt when someone uses your spouse's name wrong? Like they dropped it into the wrong sentence on purpose. I sat up, feet on the floor, heart suddenly busy. What happened? Is she okay? Are the kids okay? I was already bracing for some hospital scene in my head. "They are fine, everyone is fine, this is about the past." Her words crawled out like she hated each one. I relaxed for half a second, then tensed twice as hard. Late night calls about the past never bring anything good. "I do not get it, why are you calling me now?" "I have been praying about this for years, Mark." The way she said years made my throat feel tight. "I cannot keep it to myself anymore, God will not let me." I rolled my eyes, not proud of that reaction at all. Still, I heard something raw behind the church tone, and it bothered me. "Look, it is almost midnight, can this wait?" My voice came out flat, more defensive than calm. She jumped on that like I had proved her point. "That is exactly why I am calling now, before I lose courage." Her voice shook harder, and I felt my patience burn away. "This is about your marriage, Mark, about how it started." My hand clenched around the phone so fast it hurt. I glanced over at the bed, at my sleeping wife. Emily lay turned away from me, breathing slow and steady. I remember thinking she looked peaceful while my brain caught fire. "What does that mean? Started how?" My voice climbed too high. I sounded guilty, which is ridiculous, but that is how it felt. Rachel went quiet, like she had to push the words up. "When you two got married, Emily did something she never confessed." My first instinct was to laugh it off, the second was to listen. "You are scaring me for nothing," Rachel spit it out. I stood up, walked to the door, and stepped into the hallway. The house felt wrong even though nothing had changed yet. "I do not want to say this," she whispered into the line. "But your wife has not been faithful to you, not from the beginning." Everything inside me slammed on the brakes at once. I leaned on the wall because my knees honestly wobbled. "You need to stop right there," I said through my teeth. "That is a massive thing to throw at someone, and you know it." I wanted to hang up. I also wanted every detail she had. I know, and I am so sorry." Her breathing turned choppy, I could hear her pacing somewhere. "This happened a long time ago, but that does not make it nothing." The word nothing hit me wrong, like she was grading my life. 14 years, Mark, it has been 14 years since it happened. 14. That number did not land, it crashed. I started counting without meaning to: wedding year, first apartment year. 14 years meant right after we said the vows. Right after everyone clapped and told us we looked perfect together. "You are mixing things up," I said, trying to sound sure. "You have the dates wrong, we have been married 14 years. "Yes," she answered very quietly now, "I know exactly how long." "It was at the start, it was that first year, it was not an accident." The hallway seemed smaller than before, like the walls leaned in. "You are telling me my wife cheated on me our first year?" Saying it out loud made my voice crack like a teenager. Rachel did not rush to answer, which somehow hurt more. "It was not just one slip, Mark, that is the part that eats me. It was a choice, and then another one, and then she buried it." I pressed my forehead against the wall and shut my eyes. A part of me wanted to call her cruel and hang up. Another part whispered that Rachel never did drama calls, not ever. "Why are you saying this now, after 14 years of silence?" I needed a reason that made sense, something I could attack. "Because I watched you bless your anniversary picture last week." She sounded almost sick when she said that, like the memory hurt. You thank God for a faithful wife and a strong marriage. I stood there and felt like I was standing on a lie. I asked God if I had to speak, and I could not shake it. Honestly, that line pissed me off more than the accusation. She made it sound like heaven had sent her to wreck my night. You could have come to me back then when this supposedly happened. My voice had that tight, fake calm I use with rude clients. Why wait until my whole life is built on it? I begged her to tell you herself back then and later. Now there was anger in her voice too, hot and tired. She promised she would, she always had a reason to wait. New baby, your job, your stress, your health, there was always something. I kept quiet because I did not want to be the one who destroyed you. The phrase destroyed you landed right in my chest. Destroyed felt bigger than one kiss, bigger than one stupid night. Are we talking about a one-time mistake? I asked slowly. Or something else, something I actually need to know in detail? My hand shook so hard I had to switch the phone between ears. Rachel hesitated again, then let out a low, broken sound. I will not give you everything over the phone, not like this. It is not my story to explain, it is hers, but I cannot let you stay blind. You need to look at that first year again, really look. Look at the trips, the nights she stayed away, the times she vanished. That word vanished hit a nerve I did not want to touch. Little gaps I had shrugged off started to slide forward in my mind. I tried to shove them back down, tried to protect myself. You are twisting normal life into some cheating puzzle, I snapped hard. You are religious, not psychic, you do not get to rewrite my marriage. I am not rewriting it, I am finally telling the rest of it. Her voice dropped low, almost a whisper but clear. You can hate me if you want, I get that. But once you start digging, you will see I am not making this up. 14 years or not, the truth does not expire just because it is old. We stayed silent for a few long breaths that felt heavy. I listened to the faint sound of her sniffing, maybe crying. Behind me down the hall, I could hear the soft hum of a fan. My life still sounded normal while the floor under it shifted. Do you have proof, anything beyond your word and your guilt? Yes, I kept some things, I never deleted everything. She rushed the words now, afraid I would bail. Old emails, screenshots, messages she sent me when it was happening. I did not keep them to hurt you, I kept them because I knew this day would come. I will send you what I have, you can match the dates yourself. I swallowed so hard my throat burned. Part of me hated that a tiny piece of relief slipped in. Proof meant I was not at the mercy of someone's fragile conscience. Proof also meant this might be real, not a bad dream. I am hanging up now, Rachel, send whatever you think I need to see. Mark, she stopped me right before I hit end. Do not confront her until you have looked, please. Her voice carried this strange mix of fear and hope. I know she loves you now, I really believe that. But the man you are today deserves the whole story, not the edited one. That last line lodged itself somewhere I could not reach yet. I ended the call without saying goodbye, my thumb almost slamming the screen. The hallway felt colder as soon as her voice cut out. I stood there, phone in my hand, like I had forgotten its purpose. A text notification popped up almost right away, and I could not touch it. I walked back toward the bedroom, each step heavier than the last. Emily had not moved, still turned away, still breathing slow and steady. I watched her shoulders rise and fall and tried to see a stranger. Instead, I saw the woman I had trusted without question for 14 years. I also saw the crack Rachel had drawn straight through that image. For a second I thought about shaking my wife awake. I almost did it, fingers lifted, anger hot in my chest. I pictured our kids hearing raised voices, doors slamming, everything breaking. I dropped my hand and stepped back, almost tripping over my own foot. I knew if I asked questions now, she could still talk her way around me. I went to the living room and sat with the dark and my phone. Another buzz, more messages from Rachel, waited on the screen. I stared at her name and felt something in me tilt for good. Either she was lying and I was about to blow up my life for nothing. Or she was telling the truth and my life had been blown up years ago. I opened the first attachment without breathing. My thumb slipped and I almost backed out of the thread. It was a screen grab of an old chat between them. Emily and Rachel, years younger, laughing in text about something. My name appeared 3 lines down and my chest tightened again. They were talking about that weekend like it was some funny secret. Emily had typed that I would never find out with a stupid winky face. I felt my jaw clench so hard it ached along the sides. She called me too trusting for his own good, like that was a joke. I knew right there that call was not just guilt-driven drama. Next attachment. Different date, same chat window, more relaxed tone. Emily told her she felt alive for the first time in months. Rachel replied with a verse and a reminder to stop whatever it was. Emily answered that she would quit after one more time. One more time with who? That question hit harder than anything Rachel had spoken. There was no name in the screenshot, only a single initial. Just a capital letter in between jokes and Bible quotes. Somehow that made everything worse, like they were hiding him together. I pulled up the message list and scrolled back to the top. Dozens of files waited there, little icons lined in order. My finger hovered over the next one while my heart pounded. I almost tossed the phone across the room just to stop. Instead I tapped because apparently I enjoyed destroying myself slowly. This time the capture was from email, not chat. A subject line I did not recognize, a year that punched me. It was from Emily to Rachel, written while I thought we were solid. She wrote that she had done something unforgivable with that same initial. Apparently Rachel had pushed her to come clean and she refused. The email ended with one line that stayed burned into my head. I cannot lose Mark right now, I will take this to my grave. I felt my stomach flip like I was on some broken elevator. Right now. Like there would be a better time later to ruin me properly. I backed out of the files and opened my mail app. I searched her name, then that initial, then random words like hotel. Nothing came up that looked obvious, which made me more suspicious. I switched to the browser on autopilot, fingers moving faster than my thoughts. I logged into an old address I had not used in years. Password failed. I tried an older one and got in on the second attempt. The inbox looked like a time capsule that nobody wanted. I typed Emily's address into the search bar and waited. Years of messages appeared, some boring, some casual, some I had never seen. I filtered for the time around our first year together. I kept my eyes on the dates, afraid of the wording. Messages about wedding, thank you notes, and rent floated by quickly. Then a thread I did not remember starting at all jumped out. Subject line read, need advice, do not judge me. It was from Emily to Rachel, but I was copied. Or rather, I had been copied and removed before sending. You know how you can tell there was another recipient once? The spacing looked off, the formatting slightly broken. Rachel must have grabbed a draft before it was edited. The preview line mentioned someone from work. My heartbeat launched again, loud in my skull. I opened the thread and scrolled right to the start. It was Emily explaining that a man at her job kept flirting. She wrote that he made her feel seen when I was busy. That part hurt, but it still sounded like regular temptation talk. Then the timeline started to bend in ways I could not ignore. She wrote that they had already kissed in a parking lot. She said that she knew it was wrong yet kept meeting him anyway. She described leaving early under excuses while I covered things at home. I read that whole email 3 times before I could move. Every line was another cut in something I thought was stable. She thanked Rachel for promising not to breathe a word to me. She said she just needed someone to know her truth and keep it quiet. That last part made my hands shake so badly I nearly dropped my phone. I closed my eyes and tried to slow my breathing down. A small part of me kept trying to minimize what I saw. Maybe nothing physical happened, maybe she exaggerated to feel dramatic. That is how my brain works when it wants to avoid pain. Then I scrolled lower and ripped away that comfort in one swipe. She wrote about a hotel. Not named, just our place, like they had a regular spot. She talked about a day off that was not real on my side. According to that email, I thought she was helping her sister. In reality, she was sharing a bed with another man while I trusted her. I checked the date and expanded my calendar app. I looked up that exact day to see what I had marked. Nothing special written down, just work hours and a reminder about bills. I remembered being worn out that week and grateful she had support. My own kindness from that time felt like a bad joke on me now. The next message in the thread was Rachel begging her to stop. She wrote that continuing counted as a deliberate betrayal, not a stumble. She warned that secrets like that grew teeth and came back later. Emily responded with excuses that made my face go hot. She needed time, he understood her, I would never forgive her anyway. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling like it held answers. It did nothing, obviously, but I needed to look away from the screen. You ever have that moment where your memories rearrange themselves? Scenes you never questioned start flashing with new possible angles. That is where I was, stuck between old trust and fresh evidence. I went back to the search bar and tried different keywords. His initial matched a message about a work conference she attended. She told Rachel that he would be there too, and she was nervous. Rachel's reply in that chain was shorter and colder than before. I will not help you lie anymore, she wrote, and that stood out. I checked the dates on that trip against my old photos. I remember asking for more pictures from that event and getting a few. Now seeing the timestamps, it hit me how many hours were blank. Whole evenings with no messages, no calls, nothing from her side. My brain filled those gaps with images I did not want. I tried video calls back then and got declined a few times. I had told myself she was exhausted and just wanted to crash. Looking at those same days in my chat history now felt brutal. Her "I am wiped, talk tomorrow" lines read completely different. Every "love you" from that stretch looked like damage control in hindsight. I wish I could say I tossed the phone and slept. What I actually did was worse and way more obsessive. I logged into an old social account I barely touch now. I scrolled through her photos around that year with my pulse racing. Comments from some coworkers looked normal, but one account kept repeating. He used casual jokes that sounded too familiar for my taste. Short inside references, little hints that they shared something off-screen. Emily responded with laughing emojis and playful answers I never noticed. At the time I probably scrolled past and smiled like an idiot. Reading them with Rachel's files open felt like watching a different marriage. I clicked his profile and stared at his face longer than healthy. I had seen him once or twice in random group shots before. Now every angle made me want to punch something in the room. He looked comfortable, confident, like someone who never faced fallout. I took a screenshot before I knew why I was doing it. Part of me wanted to confront him right then and there. Send some angry message and drag him into the mess immediately. I even typed out a few ugly lines in the chat box. My thumb hovered over send while my chest burned. Then I erased everything because I realized that gave him power. If I went at him without more proof, he could warn her. He could spin some story first and make me look unstable. I needed to be the one with the most information in the room. I needed to walk into any confrontation holding actual dates and facts. That thought calmed me just enough to keep digging instead of exploding. I went back to Rachel's thread and opened more of her files. There were snapshots of messages I had never known existed. In one, Emily mentioned being late for a cycle and freaking out. She told Rachel she could not handle it if the child belonged to him. I had to set the phone down for a second so I did not throw up. I sat there with my elbows on my knees and my head down. I remembered when she told me she thought she might be pregnant early. I remember being thrilled and scared at the same time back then. We celebrated when the test came back positive a few weeks later. Now I could not stop wondering what she knew that I did not. I picked the phone up again with shaking fingers and read on. Rachel's reply in that screenshot was long and frantic. She told her to tell me the entire thing before any baby arrived. She warned that keeping quiet would poison every future joy we shared. Emily responded that she had made her choice and would not undo it. That line cut deeper than the rest for some reason. She did not say she was trapped or confused or desperate. She wrote that she chose, very clear present tense, no excuse. I felt something shift inside me right there in that living room. Admiration, respect, all those big shiny words, they all cracked at once. A notification popped up from Rachel while I was still reading. "Are you okay?" the preview asked with 3 nervous emojis. I stared at it and felt irritation and gratitude wrestle inside me. I did not want to share how gutted I felt with her right then. I also knew she was the only one besides me holding the whole secret. I typed back one short line. I saw enough to know you're not lying. My thumb hovered over send for a couple seconds while I breathed. Then I hit send and watched the message slip into the thread. 3 dots appeared almost instantly as she started answering. "I am so sorry," came through first, just that. Then another text dropped and changed the tone again. "Please remember she is not the same person now." I read that twice with my teeth grinding. Easy for her to say when she had never been in my position. I needed space from both of them, even through a screen. I locked the phone and placed it face down on the table. Silence filled the room, but my mind would not quiet at all. Images, messages, gaps in time, everything crashed together in loops. I realized if I stayed sitting there, I would talk myself out of reality. I got up and walked to the kitchen on unsteady legs. I poured water and forced myself to drink slowly. The normal act felt wrong with everything I knew now. Nobody else in the house had any clue what was happening. I was the only one awake inside this new version of our history. I carried the glass back and picked up the phone again. I opened my banking app and scrolled through old statements. Travel charges, meals, little things stood out in new ways. Certain dates lined up with messages she had sent Rachel. Hotel fees matched weekends when she told me she was somewhere else. I zoomed in on one transaction and stared at the location. I knew that area from work, a short drive from my old office. She had told me she spent that particular day visiting her mom. I could remember us arguing lightly about gas money that week. Meanwhile, she booked a room under her own name like nothing mattered. Looking back while I write this, that detail hurts more than others. She did not even bother hiding the charge under cash withdrawals. I used to joke that she was bad at secrets and we laughed. Turns out she was just careful about which secrets reach me. The difference between those two ideas keeps me up now. Another message from Rachel slid into the notification bar. "If you want to meet tomorrow, I can bring everything." I watched the screen and thought about looking her in the eyes. Could I sit across from the person who helped hide this for years? Could I handle hearing more without snapping in public? I typed and erased 3 different responses. Yes, no, not ready. In the end I wrote, "I will text you after I sleep," and left it. She reacted with a thumbs up and no more words. That tiny icon felt both kind and infuriating in the moment. Sleep was a joke, obviously. I checked the clock and realized the alarm would ring soon. I had to decide what version of myself Emily saw in the morning. Normal husband making coffee, or man who had read her secrets all night. I did not trust myself to keep a straight face for long. I powered the phone off completely and slid it aside. No more digging until I had at least stood under a shower. I told myself I would think clearer once the day actually began. It felt like a lie even as I tried to believe it. Still, I needed some line between the man on that couch and the man she would greet at sunrise. I killed the alarm with more force than needed and rolled out of bed. My body felt wired and heavy at the same time. I did not check the phone, I already knew what it held. I walked straight out of the bedroom and headed for the kitchen. I had decided during the night that I was done pretending. By the time she came in, I was standing at the counter. Hands planted, jaw locked, heart pounding in weird jerks. I watched her walk in like it was any other morning. She smiled out of habit, still half asleep, hair tied up quick. That easy smile made me want to flip the whole table over. "Hey," she reached for a mug, voice soft, routine in full swing. "Did you sleep at all? You look rough." There it was, casual concern, like my insides were not burning. I studied her face for a second longer than normal. Then I threw the first match on the floor. "Rachel called me last night." The words landed between us like a dropped tool. Her fingers tightened around the mug without reaching the handle. She kept her eyes on the counter for a beat too long. Then she finally looked up, face already losing color. "Oh, just that," a little exhale, not quite surprise. Why is everything okay with her?" She overdid the confusion, stretched it out, made it obvious. I watched every tiny movement like I was seeing a stranger. "She wanted to talk about you, about our first year." The mug touched the counter with a small, shaky sound. She did not look confused anymore, she looked cornered. I noticed the exact second she understood what had happened. Not because she asked what Rachel told me. Because she did not ask that at all. What exactly did she say? Her voice dropped, no more sleepy, no more sweet. No good morning, no joking, just straight to damage control. I remember thinking, okay, so this is the real version. This is the part where you either lie well or tell me everything. She dragged in a breath and braced herself against the counter. Can we not do this before the kids wake up? That line hit me like a slap because it dodged the topic. I stepped away from the wall and moved closer to her. We are absolutely doing this now, while I still stay calm. Her eyes flicked toward the hallway like she expected small footsteps. Then back to me, measuring, calculating, trying to read my mood. Rachel blew something way out of proportion, she all eyes does. That excuse made my chest heat up instantly. Try again, I saw the messages. The change was instant. Her shoulders slumped, mouth parted, eyes shut for a second. She looked like someone who had hoped for a miracle and lost it. When she opened her eyes again, there was wetness at the edges. Okay, then you know I messed up badly. I laughed once, short and ugly, because that word felt tiny. Messed up covers leaving the milk out, not what I read. I heard my own voice and barely recognized it. Not shouting but sharp in a way I almost never use. If this was nothing, you wouldn't have sworn Rachel to secrecy. She flinched at that, which told me enough on its own. Her hand went to her face, rubbing at her forehead. It was a stupid emotional thing, I was lonely, you were gone a lot. She pushed each excuse out like they were beads on a string. It was texting and a kiss, and I shut it down, that's what it was. There it was, the starter story. Softened, cut down, polished to sound survivable. It was not only texting, I kept my eyes on hers. And no, it did not end where you want me to believe it ended. I let that hang there until she looked away. Please, she moved closer, fingers reaching for my arm. I am not saying I did nothing wrong, I am saying it was brief. Her grip tightened like she could anchor me with touch. Back then I was stupid and insecure, and I made a terrible choice. I realized how much I loved you, and I stopped it before the wedding. That last sentence almost made me black out. Before the wedding. Even framing it that way made me feel sick. Stop using that like a shield, I snapped, pulling my arm away. Do you hear yourself? You are bragging you ended it before vows. She winced, eyes dropping to the floor again. That is not what I am doing, I am trying to show you it was a phase. You and I, we were under so much pressure back then. Her voice trembled in that practiced way that usually melts me. This time it just sounded like a trick she had run before. I am going to trace the timeline myself, I answered. I already started actually, hours before you woke up. Her gaze jumped back to my face, panic now fully there. What does that mean? What did she give you? She wasn't asking about my feelings, only about her exposure. It means I have dates, I lifted my phone a little. I have you calling cheap hotel rooms our place in your emails. I watched her hands drop limply to her sides. I have you promising Rachel you will tell me, then never doing it. Do not stand here and try to sell this as one kiss. She covered her mouth with her hand and let out a broken sound. It could have been a sob or just air leaving too fast. I swear to you, I never loved him, not for a second. Her voice came out rough, almost raw. I was addicted to how it made me feel, that is all it was. I shook my head because I could not listen to that spin. Do you hear how insulting that is? So I was good enough to marry, to build a life with. But not enough to stop you from sneaking off for hits of attention. Every word felt like it scraped my throat on the way out. I was young and stupid, she stepped closer again. I had not processed my issues, I had no idea who I was. She reached toward my chest, fingers spreading like she wanted to hold on. Once I saw what I was doing to you, I cut it off. I have been faithful to you ever since, I swear on everything. That last line would have worked on the old version of me. The one who never checked dates or read secret threads. Now it just sounded like a line from some damaged script. You keep talking about how you felt, not about what you did. I need plain language and I need all of it. She pulled her hand back and pressed it against the counter. Okay, ask your questions. The words came out resigned, tired, like she was taking an exam. For real, ask whatever you need to get through this. That get through this part stung, like she was planning our recovery already. I took a breath I did not feel and forced my voice steady. Who was he? Silence. Her jaw tightened, eyes squeezed shut, shoulders rose. That is not important now, he is gone, he is nothing to us. Wrong, my answer came faster than my brain. He knew he was with a married woman, that matters. He got something that belonged here in this house with us. If you think that sounds possessive, you are right. I was not in the mood to sound reasonable. It does not matter because I cut him out completely. Her words sped up like she could outrun the question. He transferred, he moved on, I have not seen him in forever. He has his own family now from what I heard. She bit her lip as soon as that last part slipped out. You heard, I locked onto that slip instantly. So you kept tabs. Her eyes flew wide, like she wanted to pull the word back inside. No, I mean people mentioned him at work. Okay, sometimes that is all. Office gossip, nothing more. I did not ask. I did not buy it, but I filed that reaction away. I had learned a long time ago to watch what people tried to hide. How long did it go on? I pressed. From first kiss to last contact, actual numbers. If she lowballed that answer, I knew I would feel it. She gripped the counter edge so tight her knuckles lightened. A few months. The words almost did not come out. It started near the end of our engagement and ended that first year. Her voice dropped on the last part like she could make it smaller that way. I stared at her and felt something inside me go very still. That first year, I repeated, making sure she heard the echo. The year we were supposed to be building a foundation. The year everyone congratulated us for being solid and devoted. The year you chose to keep sleeping with someone else. I did not, it was not like that, her face twisted, tears spilling now. It was not constant, there were gaps, it fizzled out. I saw you with the kids, with our life, and I panicked. I knew if I told you, everything we had would shatter. I thought ending it and staying silent was protecting us. There it was, the moral logic she had lived with for over a decade. She had convinced herself silence was some kind of sacrifice. You protected yourself, I answered, voice lower now. You avoided consequences and called it protection. Every anniversary, every holiday, you let me toast to a lie. She shook her head hard like she could shake that word away. It was not a lie to me, not after it ended. After I cut him off, you were the only person I wanted. She reached out again, fingertips barely touching my wrist. Everything we built after that was real. I will admit this part out loud even though I hate it. A tiny corner of my brain wanted to believe that so badly. You spend years in a story and you do not want to rewrite it. But there was another corner, louder now, that refused. If it was real, why did you never tell me? Her shoulders sagged and she looked past me toward the window. Because every year that went by, it got harder. At first I told myself I would tell you after the wedding. Then after things calmed down with the baby. Then after that I was trapped in my own lie. That trap was one you set yourself, I answered quietly. You had chances, Rachel begged you over and over to come clean. Her eyes flashed at the mention of that name again. So she showed you everything, she muttered, more to herself. She just dumped it all on you in one night. She gave me enough that you cannot spin this as a misunderstanding. I did not bother hiding that detail. She needed to know I was not operating blind anymore. She did not tell me everything though, she said that was your job. I am giving you a chance to actually do it. She turned away for a second and pressed both hands to her face. I watched her shoulders shake, heard the muffled sobs. I did not move toward her, which is new for me. Normally I fold at the first sign of her breaking. This time I just waited, because I needed answers more than comfort. When she turned back, her cheeks were wet and eyes red. I slept with him a handful of times, she said, no softening words. The first time was a conference trip, like you probably figured out. After that there were a few afternoons, maybe 5, maybe 6. I stopped counting because I knew every number made me worse. There it was, the line I could not cross back from. You can tell yourself a lot when you want to preserve something. You can recast physical betrayal as some drunken mistake. You cannot recast a handful of times as an accident. That is not a dumb emotional mistake, that is a second relationship. She shook her head fast, almost angry now. It was not a relationship, he did not know me, not really. I never gave him what I give you, he was an escape. Her voice cracked again on that last word. I hated myself after every single time, I promise you that. I laughed again, softer, because I did not know what else to do. Your self-hatred did not keep you out of hotel rooms. That is the part that sticks with me. All that guilt, all that shame still did not make you stop. You only quit when you got scared I might find out. She blinked, thrown. That is not true. I leaned in slightly, eyes locked on hers. You told Rachel you could not handle the idea of a baby with him. The second there was a risk you could not hide, it ended. Her lips parted and she looked actually stunned that I knew that. I did not. You saw that message too. Her hand went to her stomach like she felt the memory physically. I thought I was late and I almost lost my mind. That was when I realized what I was risking. I felt my pulse in my ears at that admission. I did not know anything about that, I said slowly. Yo. You and I celebrated that pregnancy like it was the best surprise. You let me pick names while you wondered whose child you were carrying. My voice shook for the first time since we started talking. She swiped at her face again, tears coming faster. I swear to you, once we got the dates right, I knew it was yours. I checked and checked, I talked to a doctor, I made sure. I never doubted again after that, not once. She reached toward me, almost pleading. They are yours, every part of them is yours. I pulled back like her touch burned. I will decide that with a test, I said, quiet but final. The sentence surprised us both as soon as it left my mouth. I had not planned to say it yet, but there it was. Her whole face changed like I had punched her. You are going to make them do that. Her voice dropped low, full of horror now. You are going to drag them into this mess. I felt a fresh wave of anger rise up hot and fast. You dragged them into this the day you went to that first room. She covered her mouth again, breathing uneven. I cannot believe you would question that after everything we built. That line did something to me, snapped something in half. You questioned it first, Emily, I answered, and using her name felt heavy. You were the one crying to your friend about not knowing. She stared at me, stunned, tears hanging on her lashes. For a second the room went almost silent in my memory. No clinking dishes, no distant traffic hum, just our breathing. That was the point where I understood there was no going back. We could not pretend this was just a rough conversation and move on. From the hallway, a door clicked and small footsteps started our way. She jerked her head toward the sound like a guilty teenager. Please, she whispered, voice shredded now. Can we stop for now, please? Can we not do this in front of them? Her eyes begged me for that one mercy. I looked toward the hallway, then back at her. I am not a monster, as much as I sound like one here. I did not want our kids walking into a shouting match. So I nodded once, short, not gentle. This is not over, we are pausing, not fixing. She swallowed and wiped her face fast with her sleeve. By the time our child rounded the corner, she had forced a smile. I watched her switch gears in 2 seconds flat. Pour breakfast, ask about plans, act like the world was normal. I stood there feeling like an extra in my own life. Looking back, that morning in the kitchen was a line in the sand. Before that, the betrayal lived in old emails and hidden calls. After that, it lived in the space between our words. She had finally spoken pieces of it out loud, but only the pieces she chose. I knew then I would need someone else to fill in the rest. I texted Rachel one line and hit send before I could rethink. We talked today face to face. The 3 dots started right away, then froze, then vanished. I stared at the screen, waiting for her courage to catch up. She finally answered with an address and a simple "I will be there." I got there early on purpose so I could watch her come in. I wanted to see if she looked guilty or relieved or both. My leg bounced under the table while I tried not to stare at the door. Every minute felt stretched, like my brain refused to sit still. By the time she walked in, I was ready to bite through glass. She spotted me and stopped for half a second, like she almost turned around. Then she squared her shoulders and came over with slow steps. Her eyes were swollen, her mouth pressed tight, her hands empty. Thank you for meeting me, she started, voice already unsteady. I cut her off with just a look because I was done with soft openings. Zit. I know it sounds harsh, but that is where I was. She lowered herself into the chair and folded her hands together. It looked like she was praying without words right there. For some reason that made me even more annoyed. I need you to tell me everything you never told me, I began. No filters, no cleaning it up, no protecting anyone. Her fingers twisted together, knuckles whitening as she watched me. I told you a lot already, she answered, eyes dropping to the table. But I know that is not what you are asking for. What you gave me was enough to blow up my sleep, I replied. But I can tell you held some things back on purpose. She flinched, which was all the confirmation I needed. I am not leaving this table today with holes in the story. If you believe in truth as much as you say, prove it. She let out a shaky breath that sounded almost like a sob. You are angry at the right person, she said quietly. And also at the wrong one because I helped her hide it. She looked up at me, eyes bright with regret and fear. I kept my mouth shut when you trusted both of us. Saying that out loud does not earn you points, I answered. It does mean you know exactly how deep this went. I leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low. Start with the timeline, when did it really end? And do not throw that before the wedding line at me again. She winced like I had hit her, then nodded slowly. Okay, no more soft versions. She took a breath, held it, let it go. It started before the wedding and it did not stop there. It continued for months after you were married. My throat went dry so fast it felt like I had swallowed sand. In my head I heard her earlier version, I ended it before. That sentence shriveled and died right there at the table. How many months, I asked, forcing each word out clear. Guessing is not good enough anymore. She stared at the tabletop like it had answers written on it. From late engagement through, maybe 8 months after the wedding. Her voice dragged on that number like it hurt to say. Off and on, less often near the end but still there. She glanced up at me, braced for impact. I felt my pulse hammering in my neck, almost dizzy. So when we were picking out baby names, they were still texting. I kept my tone flat on purpose because the alternative was shouting. She nodded once, quick, eyes filling again. Not as intense as before, but yes, they were still connected. Did they sleep together after we were married? I knew the answer, but I needed her to say it straight. She swallowed and lifted her chin a little like she owed me that much. Yes, they met a few times after the ceremony. Less often than before, but it was still more than once. There was a buzzing in my ears that had nothing to do with the room. I realized my hands were clenched so tight they hurt. Where? One word clipped, all I could manage without losing it. She took another breath and gave up the next piece. Sometimes in his car, sometimes at that same hotel you saw. Her mouth twisted around the word hotel like it tasted awful. The one close to your old job, the one she joked about. I flashed back to that email where she called it our place. My jaw tightened so hard my teeth ached. You watched all this happen while you watched us play house. It came out rough, almost like a growl. Her eyes filled and spilled over, tears running unchecked now. I confronted her over and over, you have to know that. She always said she would tell you after she ended it. But she did not end it. I said it quietly, which somehow hit harder. She just kept pushing the confession farther down the road. Each after had been another excuse to keep me in the dark. I could feel my own breathing speed up as that sank in. Rachel nodded, rubbing at her cheeks with the back of her hand. She would swear to me she was done, then a week later admit they met again. She was hooked on the attention and terrified of losing you at the same time. I would quote verses and talk about honesty, and she would cry and promise. Then she would walk out and do the opposite. Hearing it laid out like that made everything feel worse, not better. It was not a single terrible fall, it was a pattern she had repeated. She told me she never loved him, I muttered. That he was just some temporary escape she regretted every time. Rachel let out a humorless little breath that was not quite a laugh. She did not love him, she admitted. At least not the way she loves you, that part I believe. He was more of a mirror, he gave her back a version of herself she liked. She hated that and craved it at the same time. She used to say she felt like two different people. That line made something murky shift inside my chest. I am not defending her, I am just telling you what hit me. Two different people is exactly how it felt sitting at my table now. One who made lunches and paid bills and raised our kids. One who booked rooms and lied to both of us like it was nothing. I dragged my attention back to the actual reason I was there. We need to talk about the pregnancy, I said, and the words tasted sour. Rachel's eyes slammed shut for a second like she had been waiting for that. I figured you would get there, she whispered. That was the point where I almost went to you myself. Almost. People love that word when they want credit for something they never did. You knew she thought the baby might be his. I kept my gaze locked on her so she could not dodge. Yes, she answered, voice small now. She called me in the middle of the night and completely fell apart. Walk me through that call, I pressed. Not in general, step by step. She blinked fast, wiped her face again, then nodded. She told me her period was late and she was spiraling. She had been with you and with him close together and she could not sort the dates. My chest went tight in a way that hurt to breathe through. It is one thing to suspect, another to hear it out loud. She said she kept counting the days on a calendar and getting sick. She asked me what she was supposed to do. If it was not yours. She kept repeating that word, if, over and over. I leaned back a little so I would not put my fist through the table. And what did you tell her? I already knew whatever it was had not involved telling me. Rachel looked wrecked, which honestly she should have. I told her she had to tell you everything before that baby came. She did not. Again, simple, ugly fact sitting in the middle of our conversation. Rachel stared at her hands like they belonged to someone else. She said she would, she swore she would, she even practiced. We walked through how to say it, when to say it, all of it. You helped her plan the confession she never made. Hearing it framed that way did something hot behind my eyes. You stood next to me at family stuff while she rehearsed apologies she never gave. Rachel nodded, tears slipping faster now. I thought I was guiding her toward the right thing, I was wrong. What else? I pushed. What did she say about the baby itself? Because that is the part that clawed at me when I tried to sleep. Rachel hesitated, then looked me straight in the face. She told me she might end the pregnancy if it was not yours. The air left my lungs so fast I grabbed the edge of the table. I did not know that, I managed every word tight. She never told me she even considered that. She told me she was scared and excited, and that was it. I felt something in my chest lurch in a way I cannot fully explain. Rachel shook her head slowly, misery written all over her features. She was terrified of carrying his child and watching you raise it. She said she would rather go through that alone than watch you love a lie. I argued with her for hours about that, I begged her not to choose that route. She finally agreed she would not do anything until she knew for sure. I wiped my face with my hand and it came away damp. I had not noticed the tears until that moment. Let me be clear, I said, voice low and rough. While I was buying snacks for prenatal appointments, she was discussing whether to end it. While I was planning for a nursery, she was asking if the child was even mine. Rachel sagged in her chair like the weight of it finally crushed her. I know how terrible that sounds, she answered. That is why I could not sleep for years. I watched you post pictures, I watched her smile like everything was clean. And I stood there with all of this stuck in my throat. Why not tell me, I asked, and yeah, my voice rose. Not back then, fine, you were younger and scared, I get it. But years later, when everything looked stable, when I thanked you both for being family. You watched her stand next to me and nod along. You watched me brag about a faithful marriage and said nothing. She flinched with each word like they landed physically. There was never a good time, she murmured, then grimaced at herself. I know how that sounds, trust me, I have said it to myself 1,000 times. I kept thinking if I open my mouth now, I ruin everything for everyone. And then I would hear another sermon about truth and just sit there. That is not an answer, I shot back, hands open in disbelief. That is a long way to say you chose comfort over honesty. For her, for you, for your little piece. I leaned forward again, elbows planted, because I needed her to feel it. You say God would not let you stay quiet, you ignored that for 14 years. She nodded, a harsh little movement. You are right. No justification, no attempt to sugarcoat, just that. I loved her, I loved both of you, and I was a coward. I tried to manage the damage instead of actually facing it. For a second, that admission cut through some of my rage. Not because it made things okay, but because it sounded honest. I need something else from you, I stated, voice steadier. I need you to tell me if there is any chance, any at all, that my oldest is not biologically mine. The words felt jagged coming out, but I forced them. Rachel held my gaze for a long moment. I could see the conflict in her eyes, like she wanted to soften it. "This is the part I begged her to tell you herself," she whispered. "Based on the dates she gave me back then, there is a window. A small one, but yes, there is a chance." My vision went weird around the edges for a second. Nothing dramatic, just a kind of wobble in the room. "Percentage?" I demanded, because my brain likes numbers when it panics. "Are we talking impossible, remote, 50-50 what?" She exhaled through her nose, long and shaky. "I am not a doctor," she started, then caught my expression and changed course. "She was with him and with you in the same stretch of time. She thought it lined up more with you, that is what she told me. But the overlap was close enough that she could not be 100% sure. She chose to believe it was you and live like that was fact." There. It was. Not proof, but the worst kind of uncertainty. "Did she ever mention doing a test?" I asked. "Secretly, before she said anything to me." Rachel shook her head right away. "No, she was too afraid something would come back she could not manage. She thought as long as she kept it in her head, she could control it. She convinced herself that feeling like the child was yours was enough." I told her feeling is not the same as knowing. She did not want to know, not really. I sat back, palms flat on the table now, because I needed contact with something solid. "You realize I do not get that luxury," I said. "I do not get to just choose a feeling and call it truth. I am going to test, for my sanity, for theirs, for reality. And whatever that paper says is going to decide what I do next." Rachel's face crumpled at that, but she did not argue. "I figured you would go there after seeing those messages. I cannot tell you not to, that would be insane. I hope you remember the kind of father you have been, no matter what." She wiped her cheeks again, breathing uneven. "That is the one thing I am sure about," I answered. "I know exactly what kind of father I have been. That is why this hurts on a level I cannot explain to you. Because all those memories might sit on a different foundation than I thought." I felt my throat close up, but I kept going. "Last thing," I forced out, needing to finish this part. "Did she ever say she thought about leaving me for him? If there is a version of that, I need to hear it from you." Rachel stared at the table again, then gave another small nod. "One time during the conference months, she told me she wondered." I stared at her, waiting for more heart pounding against my ribs. "She said he understood her and you were distracted and maybe she chose too fast," Rachel continued. "She fantasized about running off with him, starting over, no baggage, no guilt. The next day she panicked and told me she never wanted that for real. But yes, the thought crossed her mind and she spoke it out loud. That landed different than everything else, I will be honest. Not because I thought she actually would have done it. Because while I was out building a life for us, she was entertaining exit routes." "Thank you for telling me that," I said, and I meant it in a twisted way. "I would rather bleed from the whole cut than wonder what I missed." Rachel nodded, shoulders shaking, tears dripping onto her hands now. "I know this does not fix anything, not even a little. I also know I am probably the last person you want to hear advice from. But if you can, separate who she was then from who she is now. That might be the only way you survive this without turning to stone." I looked at her and felt two opposite things at the same time. Rage at her silence, strange gratitude for her finally opening her mouth. "She is the one who has to show me who she is now," I answered. "Not with words, with what she does next. And I am the one who has to decide if that is enough." We sat there in heavy quiet for a few breaths, both wrung out. My phone buzzed against the table and we both glanced at it. Her name lit up the screen with a simple "How are you?" She had no idea where I was or who I was sitting with. For the first time since this started, I ignored her message on purpose. I ordered the DNA kits before I even took my shoes off. Laptop open, fingers flying, heart running miles ahead. I clicked through options until I found one that tested paternity directly. No ancestry games, no fun traits, just straight answers. My hand hovered over the purchase button and then I pressed it hard. The confirmation email popped up and I stared at the screen. Part of me wanted to cancel and crawl back into ignorance. Another part was already imagining the results page in brutal detail. Name of each child, percentage, cold lines that did not care about feelings. I closed the laptop because my vision started to blur around the edges. She walked in a few minutes later, wiping her hands on a towel. You disappeared after breakfast, everything okay? Her voice sounded almost normal, maybe a little careful. I could feel her watching my face, trying to read the new version of me. Yeah, just dealing with something online, I answered, which was technically true. She came closer, leaning on the back of the chair. You never answered my text earlier, that freaked me out a little. Her fingers squeezed the wood once like she needed an anchor. I have been trying to give you space, but this silence is scary. I exhaled long and sharp, then decided to throw the next log on. I ordered DNA tests for the kids. Her hand dropped away from the chair like I had shocked her. She stared at me, mouth slightly open, eyes wide. It took her a second to find words that would actually come out. You did what? You heard me, I forced my tone slow in. De-study. Family health panel, genetics, all that stuff everyone is doing now. I watched the lie sit between us and change shape. She blinked fast, trying to catch up to where I had jumped. Health panel, right, just like that. Yeah, I shrugged, pretending I had not been planning it all night. Figure it could be useful to know if anything runs deeper. I kept my voice light like this was some trendy project. If there is something we should watch for, I want to know early. She studied me so hard I had to fight the urge to look away. Why now, she asked, no sugar on it at all. Out of all the months and years behind us, why this week? Her arms folded across her chest, shoulders tight. I realized she had stopped trying to act casual 2 sentences ago. You think I am stupid, she added, and there was pain in it. I held her gaze and told another partial truth. Because I spent the last few days realizing I know less than I thought. I am not rolling those dice with their health too. That line was vague enough to sell, sharp enough to land. Her jaw worked as she chewed on that answer. Are you going to tell them the real reason, she asked. She was not yelling, which somehow felt worse. What are you planning to say when you stick swabs in their mouths? I rubbed my thumb against my palm, trying to bleed off nerves. I am going to say exactly what I told you, health, information, nothing scary. She looked down, then back up, and something shifted in her eyes. I do not like this, she said, voice low, almost hoarse. It feels like you are putting them on trial for my sins. Hearing that phrased out loud almost knocked me sideways. You did that, I answered quietly. I am just reading the verdict. She flinched, shoulders tightening, fingers curling against her arms. Fine, if this is what you need to sleep again, then we do it. But you look those kids in the eye and you keep it light. Her voice cracked a little, but she pushed through it. They do not deserve to carry this weight before you even know. The kits arrived 2 days later, and my heartbeat doubled when I saw the box. I took it inside and opened it on the counter with careful hands. Neat rows, numbered tubes, instructions that pretended this was a fun activity. She watched from across the room, lips pressed together hard. You really went through with it, she murmured, more to herself than to me. Hey guys, come here a second, I called toward the hallway. Footsteps came running, voices overlapping the normal chaos. I forced a smile onto my face and pointed at the box. We are doing a science thing today, quick and easy. That word science always worked, at least with them. They crowded around, asking questions, poking at the packaging. She stepped forward and forced a bright tone onto her voice. Dad found some tests that tell us about our health and stuff. She ruffled hair, joked about superhero genes, played along. Her eyes flicked to mine once, and I saw raw panic behind the smile. The first swab went in without any suspicion. They laughed at how weird it felt to rub the inside of a cheek. I counted the seconds, making sure we followed the directions perfectly. I labeled each tube with slow, deliberate strokes so I would not mix anything. My hands shook just enough that I had to grip the pen harder. Do we get the results right away? One of them asked. Not instantly, I answered, trying to keep my tone steady. They will send us an email once everything is processed. Then we can see if you have any cool genetic quirks. I felt like a fraud, but I kept the grin plastered on. She hovered close while we finished each sample. Every time a child turned away, her gaze jumped back to my face. Part fear, part fury, part something like grief. When the last tube was sealed, I felt like I had finished surgery. No blood, but my insides felt sliced open. "You sure you did not mix them up?" she asked once they scattered. Her voice was sharp, clipped, almost accusing. "You did label them correctly, right?" I snapped my head toward her, stung. "Yes, I know how to read names." She shut her eyes briefly, then opened them slower. "That is not what I meant, and you know it. I am panicking and picking at details because this terrifies me." Her fingers drummed against the counter like static. "And the worst part is, I cannot even say you are overreacting." I slid the samples into the return package, hands very deliberate. Every fold and seal felt like a point of no return. "You want me to drop this at the shipping place?" she asked. Her tone sounded almost hopeful, like she wanted proof of her cooperation. "No, I have it," I answered and tucked the envelope into my bag. She watched that small movement like it was my heart being zipped away. "Can I ask you one thing?" she said, voice softer now. "If the results say what I know they will say, what then?" The way she stressed that W. Ordno made my skin crawl. "Do they fix anything for you?" "They answer a specific question," I replied. "That is all. No test can rebuild what you smashed." It came out quieter than I meant, which actually made it heavier. Her eyes filled again, glistening, but she did not let them spill. "I do not know how to live with you thinking they might not be yours," she whispered. I slung the bag over my shoulder and headed for the door. "You managed to live with you thinking that for years," I said. The look on her face when I said that is burned into me. Like I had just turned her own reflection toward her. I stepped out before either of us could say anything worse. Dropping the package off took 30 seconds. The real weight hit afterward, walking back to the car. Envelope gone, clock started, no way to call it back. I sat in the driver's seat with my hands on the wheel. For a second I thought about driving until the tank ran dry. Instead I drove home, because apparently I still function under pressure. The house looked exactly the same when I pulled up. That almost offended me. She met me at the door, eyes searching my face for some clue. "Well," she asked, voice tight, "did you mail them?" "Yeah," one word, heavy, final. An odd calm settled over me as I said it. Like the decision had passed some invisible line I could not cross back. She leaned against the frame and exhaled slowly. "Okay, then I need to tell you something." Every muscle in my body tensed again. "If this is another partial version, I am not interested," I warned. She shook her head, hair shifting slightly, eyes locked on mine. "No half versions, I just want to be clear about one thing. I have not cheated on you since that year, not even close." I stared at her, trying to detect any flicker of lying. "You are not going to find new hotel charges, new messages, whatever," she continued. "I messed up horribly back then and buried it and built my life around you. I kept waiting for everything to collapse and it never did until now." Her hands were shaking, but her voice held steady. "Do you want credit for staying faithful after detonating the start?" I asked. It came out harsher than planned, but I did not take it back. She flinched like each word hit separately. "No, I need you to know I have been all in for a long time. Every day I woke up next to you has been a gift I did not deserve." That could sound sweet to some people. To me it sounded like someone grateful their robbery never got reported. "Then you should have confessed when we still had something unbroken," I said. Her eyes went glassy again, tears threatening but not falling. "I know," she whispered, "every year I waited made it worse. The waiting for results turned into its own kind of torture." I checked my email more than I want to admit. At work, in the car, standing in line, in the bathroom. Every buzz made my stomach jump and then sink when it was anything else. Nights were the worst, staring at the dark ceiling and imagining numbers. She shifted into a new gear during those days. Like someone running a campaign with a tight deadline. She packed lunches with notes tucked inside, little hearts drawn. She planned family game nights and actually laughed louder than usual. She reached for my hand more often, as if contact would sway the lab. One night she climbed into bed and faced me instead of turning away. "I called a counselor today," she announced, voice quiet but firm. "They have openings for couples sessions starting next month." She searched my eyes for any sign of hope. "I want to fight for us, even if you hate me while we do it." "I do not hate you," I answered, which surprised both of us. I do not know what to call this, but it is not hate. Anger, grief, humiliation, yes, all of that, but not pure hate. Counseling does not change lab results, I added. But if we keep moving forward, we might need someone who is not emotionally tied. She seemed to grab onto that like a rope tossed into deep water. So you are considering staying? She asked, almost afraid to breathe. I frowned because that was not what I had actually said. I am considering everything, I replied. Nothing is decided yet. Right now, I am just waiting for an email that might change my entire identity. I pray every night that it will show you what I already know, she murmured. There it was again. That word no, like her feelings signed the report. She placed her hand over my chest, resting it there. And I pray you will see that God protected our family even from my worst choices. That line snapped something inside me in a different way. God did not cheat for you, I answered, voice low. Do not drag him in as your cleanup crew. Her hand stiffened against my shirt, then pulled back slowly. You do not understand grace, she whispered, hurt and offended at once. Maybe not, I shot back, but I understand math. A. Indy, right now, I am waiting to see if the numbers line up. Her eyes flashed, wounded, defensive, furious. She rolled away from me and pulled the blanket up to her shoulders. We lay there like strangers on the same mattress. The email came 3 days later, late afternoon. Subject line harmless, just the company name and your results are ready. My hands immediately felt numb and hot at the same time. I stood in the hallway, phone in one hand, other hand on the wall. For a second I thought about waiting until she got home. I did not. I tapped the link and logged in with shaky fingers. Progress bar, spinning circle, all the little digital stalling tactics. Then the dashboard appeared with neat, organized sections. I clicked the paternity part first because everything else could wait. The screen loaded and my heart climbed into my throat. Child 1. Probability of paternity, greater than 99.9%. Name right there next to mine, connected by clinical language. I read that line 3 times before I trusted it. My knees softened and I had to shift my weight to stay upright. Child 2 showed the same numbers. Again that cold, precise wording tying us together. I felt something warm flood my chest and something cold rush in behind it. Relief and fury fighting for the same space inside me. By the time I reached the 3rd line, my eyes were already wet. All of them. Every single one. Biologically mine, indisputable according to the lab. I stared at the screen and let out a sound I did not recognize. Half laugh, half sob, way too loud for an empty hallway. The front door opened while I was still standing there. She stepped inside, keys in hand, and froze when she saw my face. What happened? She asked, dropping her bag. Her eyes went straight to the phone in my hand. Are they in? I turned the screen toward her without a word. She walked closer slowly, like she was approaching a wild animal. Her eyes scanned the lines, moving faster with each one. A choked little cry burst out of her when she hit the last result. She covered her mouth, then reached for me with the other hand. I told you, she breathed, voice shaking. I told you they were yours, I knew it deep down. She wrapped her arms around me like she expected me to lift her. Her body shook against mine, sobs coming from somewhere low. For a second, purely on instinct, my arms moved like they might respond. Then my brain caught up and I stepped back out of her hold. Her hand slid off my chest and dropped between us. Confusion flashed across her face, then hurt, then a kind of shock. They are yours, everything is okay, she repeated like she could manifest it. This is the miracle we were praying for. Do not rewrite this as some pure miracle story, I said. Yes, they are biologically mine, and I am grateful for that. But you gambled with that without telling me. You put me in a position where I had to prove something you already suspected. My voice rose on that last word despite my effort to stay controlled. I did not know back then, she argued, tears streaking her cheeks. I was a mess, I was scared, I made selfish choices. Once I was sure, I never doubted again, I swear to you. She took a step forward, hands slightly raised. I have loved them and you with everything since then. And you think that cancels out that you were ready to erase them if they were not mine. The question came out harsh, unforgiving, but it was already in the air. She flinched like I had struck her. I never went through with that, she whispered. But yes, I thought about it, and I hate myself for that. I ran my fingers through my hair, pacing a small line in front of her. I am relieved beyond words that I do not have to reevaluate my kids. That part makes me want to drop to my knees. But now there is nothing left to hide behind. I cannot tell myself I am staying only for them anymore. She stared at me, realization creeping over her features. So the tests were not just about them, she said slowly. They were about whether you still had an excuse to walk away. I did not answer right away because that felt uncomfortably accurate. Finally, I gave a small nod, eyes still on the floor. She stepped closer again, more cautious this time. If they had not been yours, would you have left? She asked. The question hung there, heavy, awkward, dangerous. I do not know, I answered, and that was the truth. I think something in me already left the night Rachel called. Her face crumpled, but she did not collapse. She straightened her back, wiped her face with the heel of her hand. So what now? She asked. What do we do with this? Her voice was raw, but there was a stubborn thread in it. I am not going to let the enemy steal our family without a fight. Stop giving the devil credit for what you did yourself, I replied. My patience for spiritual language around this was gone. This is not some outside attack, this is consequences catching up. She swallowed hard, eyes glistening again. So do you want a divorce? She asked, almost in a whisper. I looked at her and felt that mix again. Love, disgust, history, grief, all crowding the same space. I want honesty, I answered, and I want safety. Right now, I do not feel either in this marriage. But I also see our kids' faces every time I picture leaving. She nodded slowly, breathing deep, steadying herself. Then maybe this is the moment we stop lying in any direction, she said. I will answer anything, go anywhere, do whatever it takes. You will probably never trust me the way you did before. But if there is a version of us that survives, I want to find it. I did not say yes and I did not say no. I just stood there with my phone in my hand and her in front of me. Results confirmed, excuse removed, decision hanging over both our heads. For the first time since the whole thing started, the question was not about biology. It was about whether I could live with the person who had rolled those dice and smiled for 14 years. The attorney pushed the folder toward me and tapped the last page. If you initial here and here, we can move forward. My hand hovered over the pen like it weighed 10 pounds. I could feel sweat on my palms and my throat felt tight. This makes it real, I muttered, more to myself than to him. He watched me for a moment, calm but focused. Nothing gets filed today unless you want it filed. We can sit on this a while if you need time. Tell me what scares you most about signing. I stared at the paper and realized the answer was ugly. I am scared it means I quit, I said slowly. Scared it means I did not fight hard enough. Scared my kids grow up thinking I walked out. And yeah, part of me is scared I am wrong about her. That last part tasted bitter as soon as I admitted it. He nodded once, then leaned back in his chair. You are not divorcing over one recent mistake, he said. This is about a long pattern she chose to hide. You tried counseling, you tried confrontation, you tried waiting. At some point, protecting yourself is not quitting, it is survival. I knew he was giving me the textbook speech honestly. But hearing another adult frame it that way still hit me. He slid a plain pen across the desk, not pushing, just offering. You do not have to sign this second, he added. You can take it home, think, talk, scream into a pillow. I picked up the pen and scribbled my initials on the engagement form. Not the final petition, not yet, just the agreement to hire him. Even that tiny signature felt like crossing a bridge. My stomach flipped and my chest went tight again. Okay, I said quietly, let us start the process. Walking out of that building, I felt weirdly lighter and heavier at once. Like I had finally admitted something out loud that I had dodged. My phone buzzed as I hit the parking lot and I checked it. A text from her popped up full of sweet words and prayer hands. Thinking about you, trusting God to heal what the enemy broke. I stared at that line and felt my jaw tense. I typed erased, then typed again, fingers moving too fast. We need to talk tonight, not about the devil, about lawyers. My thumb hesitated over send for a second, then pressed. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then nothing came through. When I got home, she was waiting in the living room. Bible open on her lap, notebook beside it, that whole setup. Her eyes were red like she had been crying and praying for hours. She rose when I walked in, like she had rehearsed a speech. "You went to see an attorney today, did you not?" "So Rachel talks to you, or you guessed," I answered. She flinched at the name, then shook her head quickly. "I am not stupid," she replied, voice shaking but firm. "You pull away, you check out, you start making private calls. I know what that usually means." "Yeah," I said, "I met with one." No sugarcoating, no gentle lead-in. Her eyes filled instantly, but she did not crumble. "So that is it then?" she asked. "You are done with us." That word "us" landed like a brick between us. "I did not file anything yet," I replied. "I started gathering information and signed a retainer. I need to know my options before I make final choices." I dropped my bag by the chair and faced her fully. "I spent 14 years not knowing the truth. I am done with blind decisions." She took a step closer, hands lifted like she wanted to touch me. "So your plan is to tear this family apart in court," she said. Her voice cracked halfway through the sentence and kept going anyway. "You are going to let some judge decide when you see your own kids. And you think that will hurt me more than it destroys them. Do not throw the children at me like you did nothing," I snapped. The anger came fast this time, no warning, no build-up. "You risked them before they why were even born, remember? You gambled with their entire existence while I planned cribs." She recoiled like the air between us had turned to fire. She pressed her palms together in front of her chest. "I confessed," she said, almost pleading. "I laid it all out. I stopped hiding. I am working on myself. I am begging God every day to restore what I smashed. I am not the woman who did those things anymore." "That woman did not die," I answered, quieter but sharper. "She grew older, learned Bible verses, and got better at compartmentalizing. You are acting like years of good behavior erase months of treachery. I am not saying you have not changed, I am saying the foundation cracked. And I am the one living on that floor every day." She wiped under her eyes with the side of her thumb. "You have not exactly been perfect either," she said carefully. "You shut down when you are stressed, you drown yourself in work. You missed milestones, you missed dates, you missed me often. I did not cheat because of that, but it did not help. That one landed because it was true and I knew it." I looked away for a second, then nodded once. "You are right," I said, "I checked out sometimes. I chose the office over dinner more than I should have. I am not pretending I was a flawless husband." I looked back at her and held her gaze. "The difference is this," I continued, "my failures were in plain sight. You could call me out on them, you could yell, you could ask for change. I did not sneak around behind your back and then play worship songs. I did not build our whole marriage on a secret step." Her lips trembled, but she pushed more words out. "God forgave me," she whispered. "I know that deep in my bones. He wiped that sin clean when I repented for real. He does not see me as the cheating wife anymore. You are the only one still chaining me to that past." "I am not God," I replied, more tired than angry. "I am the person you slept beside while you texted him. I am the man who gave his whole life to a story he did not know. You cannot quote forgiveness at me like a verse and call the debt cleared." My nervous system did not get that memo. She let out a rough breath and sat back down slowly. "I do not want to lose you," she said, voice raw. "I do not want our kids shuttled back and forth with bags. I do not want them growing up in two houses because of my stupidity. I will do anything, literally anything, to keep us together. Anything except go back in time and tell me the truth earlier," I answered. I know that sounds petty, but that is where my head was. She winced, shoulders curling in, eyes dropping to the pages in front of her. "You want me to punish myself more than I already do?" she asked. "You want me to live alone in some apartment and watch you move on?" "I want safety," I said. "You still do not get that word. Emotional safety, the sense that what I see is what I get. Right now, every nice gesture feels like a strategy to keep me. Every prayer you pray out loud sounds like a commercial. I cannot relax in a home that feels like a stage." She rubbed her temples like her head hurt. "So what, you divorce me and suddenly feel safe?" she asked. "You think sleeping in a half-empty bed will fix your nervous system? You think filling out custody schedules will heal you? She laughed once, short and bitter. You are lying to yourself if you do. I do not think divorce fixes anything, I said, and I meant it. I think it stops the bleeding from this particular wound. It draws a circle where your choices cannot reach me the same way. It forces boundaries that you keep trying to skip with hugs and Bible verses. That is what the lawyer explained, and it made depressing sense. We sat there quietly for a few seconds, both breathing hard. From the hallway, I could hear low voices from the kids' room. Their laughter drifted down the hall and slammed into my chest. That is who I am thinking about with every choice, I said. I will not let you turn this into, Dad left because he was weak. Her head snapped up at that, eyes blazing now. You really think I would poison them against you? She asked. You think I would drag them into adult pain like that? I stared at her, trying to decide if I believed her. Finally, I shook my head slowly. No, I do not think you would. I will not trash you to them either, I added. They do not need to know details about this mess yet. They need two parents who show up and stay civil. Even if one of those parents lives somewhere else eventually. Saying that out loud felt like dropping a stone off a cliff. Her eyes filled all over again, and this time she did not hide it. You talk like this is already signed and sealed, she said. Like our story is finished, and you are just writing the ending. You have not even sat with a pastor or therapist together yet. You went to an attorney before you went to counselor. I tried talking to you first, I reminded her. In the kitchen, on the couch, in the bedroom, everywhere. Every time you switched into this frantic repentance mode. You cried, you prayed, you promised, but you did not listen deeply. I realized I needed someone who was not invested in saving us. Silence stretched again, heavy and crowded with everything unsaid. Finally, she straightened her back like she made a choice too. If you file, she said slowly, I will not fight you in a dirty way. I will not smear you, I will not drag this through the mud. But I will be praying every day that you come back. That line landed in a strange place inside me. Not because I wanted to be the subject of anyone's prayer campaign, but because it reminded me that once I sign, there is no clean reset. There is just a new reality we both have to learn. And I will be praying for clarity, I answered, not a reunion. That night I spread the paperwork across the table after everyone slept. The house felt too quiet, every little sound amplified. Each page had neat boxes for things we had built messy. Where they live, where I live, holidays, money, schedules. Our whole life reduced to lines and checkmarks and signature spots. I filled in the parts the attorney had walked me through. Numbers, dates, basic custody structure that put them mostly here. I did not want to rip them out of the only home they knew. I also refused to become a weekend visitor in my own children's lives. So I aimed for something that looked like shared responsibility. My pen paused when I hit the section about grounds. There was a simple line for irretrievable breakdown of the marriage. I could have checked that and kept the document neutral. Or I could have checked the box that pointed straight at her betrayal. I stared at those little squares for a very long minute. In the end, I checked the neutral one. Not because she deserved that kindness, to be honest, but because I did not want a judge reading our entire history. I did not want my kids stumbling onto paperwork years from now. I already knew the truth, I did not need the state to stamp it. The last page waited with its blank line at the bottom. I rested the pen tip there, barely touching the paper. My hand shook more than I wanted to admit. Images flashed through my mind in quick cuts, like a bad montage. Our wedding, first baby, late-night laughter, hotel receipts, emails, all of it. My phone buzzed near my elbow, and I almost ignored it. Curiosity won, and I picked it up, glancing at the screen. A notification from the app where I had posted the original story. New comments, people asking for an update, calling me by username. A stranger had written, "Whatever you choose, make sure it is your choice." That line hit me harder than the attorney's speech. Not my wife's, not Rachel's, not my kids', mine. I opened the app and started typing with my free hand. New update, I wrote. My wife lied 14 years ago and it finally caught up. Her God-loving friend cracked, my kids are mine, and now I am staring at divorce papers. Words flowed out faster than I expected once I started. I told them about the lawyer, the tests, the prayer campaigns. I admitted the parts where I had failed too, because I am not spotless. I did not paint her as a monster, I did not paint myself as a saint. I just laid out the mess and the choice sitting in front of me. When I finished typing, I read the whole post once. Then I hit submit and watched it upload into the void. I set the phone down next to the stack of forms. Pen still resting on the signature line, ink not yet committed. That is where I am right now in this exact moment, deciding whether to drag the tip across the page and finally end the story we started on a lie.